Tonight we're going to study a verse that's very mystical. What do I mean by mystical? This verse is about what is very transformative in the most extraordinary way. Something that you may mistakenly take as ordinary or even extraordinary, but which is the most miraculous occurrence in existence. How it is that sincerely hearing and chanting about Krishna brings you the presence of the spiritual world, puts you in the spiritual world. So much so that you don't even have as your priority relief from material existence. You just want to be in the association of those who are always hearing and chanting about Krishna. This sounds inconceivable, doesn't it? It sounds like anyone with common sense, which people don't have today, would want freedom from material suffering, relief from material existence, mukti, liberation. But here the Bhakta is saying, I'm not worried about freedom from material existence. I just want the association of those who are always hearing and chanting about Krishna. Because then I have the spiritual world wherever I go. In other words, for the pure devotee, such a devotee can create the spiritual world wherever the devotee goes just by chanting about Krishna. That transforms everything. This is most astonishing. This is the true answer to all our problems. Our real problem is not so much the material miseries. They are there. But our real problem is not taking the hearing and chanting process deeply enough, seriously enough. Because that hearing and chanting process, when done in the association of dedicated devotees, can change the material existence into the spiritual existence, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is the fourth canto, chapter 30, text 33. A verse that I've meditated on for many decades. Yavat temaya sprishta Brahmama iha karma bi Tavat bhavat prasangana Sangasyana no bhave bhave Yavate maya sprishta Brahmama iha karma bi Tavat bhavat prasangana Sangasyano bhave bhave Yavate maya sprishta Brahmama iha karma bi Tavat bhavat prasangana Sangasyano bhave bhave
Yavate Maya Srishta.
Vaishnavis.
Yavate Maya Srishta.
Yavat, as long as. Te, your. Maya, by the illusory energy. Sprishta, contaminated. Brahmama, we wander. Iha, in this material world. Karma be, by the reaction of fruitive activities. Tavat, so long. Bhavat prasanganam, of your loving devotees. Sangha, association. Syat, let there be. Na, our. Bhave, bhave, in every species of life. These are the Pracetas praying. Dear Lord, as long as we have to remain within this material world due to our material contamination and wander from one type of body to another and from one planet to another, we pray that we may associate with those who are engaged in discussing your pastimes. We pray for this benediction, life after life, in different bodily forms and on different planets. Purport. This is the best benediction that a devotee can ask of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Stane stata shrutikatam tanuvan manobi. One may be in one position or another according to destiny, but in any case, one must continue to hear about the activities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord, regardless of circumstances. A pure devotee does not pray for liberation or for cessation of the cycle of birth and death, because he does not consider that important. The most important thing for a devotee is getting a chance to hear about the pastimes and glories of the Lord. The devotees who engage in the service of the Lord in this world will have the same opportunity in the spiritual world also. Thus, for a devotee, everything is in the spiritual world, for as long as he can hear about the pastimes of the Lord, or wherever he can chant, the Lord is personally present. Tatra tishtaminadada yatra gayanti madbhakta. When the pure devotees assemble to chant, hear, and talk about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the place where they assemble becomes Vaikuntha. For the devotee, there's no need to pray to the Lord for transferal to the Vaikuntha world. A pure devotee can create Vaikuntha or Vrindavan anywhere, simply by chanting the glories of the Lord without offense. The Pracetas pray for an opportunity to hear the glories of the Lord in every form of life. Bhave, bhave. A living entity transmigrates from one body to another. The devotee is not particularly eager to stop this process. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays, Mama Janmani Janmani Swade Bhavatad Bhakti Ahoy Tuki Twai. My dear Lord, life after life may I be fixed in your pure devotional service. Out of humility, a devotee considers himself unfit to be transferred to the spiritual world. He always thinks himself contaminated by the modes of material nature. Nor is there any need for a devotee to ask to be freed from the modes of material nature. Devotional service itself is in the transcendental position. Therefore, there's no question of asking for this special facility. The conclusion is that a pure devotee is not anxious to stop the repetition of birth and death, but is always eager to associate with other devotees who are engaged in chanting and hearing about the glories of the Lord. Translation again. Dear Lord, as long as we have to remain within this material world, due to our material contamination, and wander from one type of body to another, and from one planet to another, we pray that we may associate with those who are engaged in discussing your pastimes. We pray for this benediction, life after life, in different bodily forms and on different planets. Om Agana Chidanandasya Gananjana Shilakaya Chakshur Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this verse and purport requires deep contemplation on every line. It's so informative, and you might say, in a sense, it's counterintuitive. We would think, yes, I want to be free from material miseries. Yes, my number one concern is get out of here. Get out of the material world. I want to be free of material contamination. Stop the cycle of repeated birth and death. That's intelligent. But there's a higher level offered in Bhakti. Devotional service, chanting Hare Krishna, discussing Krishna in the association of devotees is the spiritual world. Now the question is, how long will it take us to realize that? How long will it take us to hear and chant about Krishna with that kind of quality that we can create the spiritual world? We can create Vrindavan anywhere. So the important thing is not so much, or shall we say, let's say it this way. The crucial factor is not so much our external situation. That will fluctuate according to our karma, according to our destiny. The external packaging, the external circumstances. That's why Lord Chaitanya stressed the verse spoken by Lord Brahma in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto. Stane stata shrutikatam tanuvanmano bhi. The main thing to do in the age of Kali especially is not change your position, jumping from this situation to that situation. Stay put, but while staying put, hear and chant about Krishna. In other words, don't disturb your life with so much jumping from this situation to that situation. In other words, sometimes you have to change. But don't put the emphasis of your life on changing your external situation. Like, this is number one important. It must be done now. I'll be satisfied by jumping from this situation to that situation. No, the most important thing is stabilize and hear and chant about Krishna. That's Lord Chaitanya's instruction in the discussion with Ramananda Roy, right at the beginning of that discussion. This answer was supplied by Ramananda Roy, was satisfactory to Lord Chaitanya. Stane stata shutikatam tanuvan manobi. So you make, as we were discussing last night, you may call yourself this Varna, that Varna, this ashram, that ashram. Stabilize yourself. Don't jump all the time from this situation to that situation, thinking that's the solution to your problems. The externalities will always fluctuate because this is a world of fluctuation. Happiness and distress is a fluctuation. You can't control the flow of your happiness and distress. It's going to come to you automatically according to your karma. The important thing is, whatever situation you're in, get the association of devotees who are focused on hearing and chanting about Krishna. And as the purity of that discussion increases, more and more you'll realize you already have the spiritual world, no matter where you are. So this verse gives you a sense, first of all, of wandering. Not only wandering on a walk in your neighborhood, but wandering from planet to planet, wandering from one bodily form to another bodily form. So you get that sense of movement in this verse. But what's the point of all that movement if you have no higher goals, no spiritual goals? Materially, everyone is moving. If not in this lifetime, they're moving from one body to their next body. From one place that they took birth to the next place they're going to take birth. But if amidst all that moving, you can get a grip on yourself and understand external adjustments are not so important. If you can do it easily and it's favorable for your bhakti, okay. But don't stake so much emphasis on it, like this is going to really do it for me. When I make this change, all my hopes, all my dreams will be fulfilled, my life will be easier. Often you make such a change and things are worse. So this is the art of bhakti, to know how not to get caught into the trap of material adjustment. All we have to do is fix this situation and then I'll be happy. All I have to do is get this. All I have to do is attain that. It's so prevalent, even mundane social scientists have a name for this syndrome. It's called the arrival fallacy. That when I reach this goal, when I arrive at this goal, I'll be satisfied. No way. But it looks like that because you're seeing a mirage. There's no water in the mirage, but you think that there's water for real. So all you do is crawl through the desert sands to the mirage, and by the time you realize it's just an illusion, it's too late. You're dying of thirst. So if you think deeply about this verse, it's really setting you straight. So as Prabhupada begins the purport, because the verse starts talking about movement from one body to another. The verse is shaking you up, so to speak, getting you to feel what's really going on in existence. You're moving, not simply in a vehicle from one street to another, or walking from one street to another, You're moving from one body to another, from one planet to another. So I hope you all feel that sense of movement. You moved into this life, you'll move into another life. And what is that movement? What's pushing it? Material contamination. Because we are contaminated with the desires to enjoy matter, to lord it over matter. We, so to speak, push on the wheel of samsara. We push on the wheel of repeated birth and death, make the wheel turn with our contaminations. And therefore, as the wheel turns, as the wheel of samsara turns, we get one body after another, on one planet or another planet. So think deeply about this verse spoken by the Pracetas. And remember, they've been performing austerities underwater for thousands of years. All we are asked to do is chant Hare Krishna and hear about Krishna. So what is their prayer once they declare that they've been wandering, pressurized by material contamination, material desires? They pray. They say, we pray that we may associate with those who are engaged in discussing your pastimes. How many of you have made that prayer? Raise your hands. Let me, oh, my dear Lord Krishna, let me associate with those who are discussing your pastimes. And how do they emphasize? How do the Pracetas emphasize this prayer? We pray for this benediction life after life. Never mind what kind of body we take in the future. Never mind what planet we'll be on. Let us have the association of those who are discussing your pastimes. Very astonishing. Because generally people, they want to be happy and free from suffering. So they approach Krishna with those kind of motivations. And as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, they have sukriti, they have merit, pious merit, because they're approaching Krishna. But it's not the best way to approach Krishna. The Pracetas here are showing the best way. You may get us out of the material world, you may not, but give us the chance to associate with devotees who are discussing your glories. Because by being in such a situation, we're in the spiritual world. We don't need to ask for liberation. We have service. This is another point the purport points out. When you have devotional service, you have the spiritual world. To have a chance to serve Krishna is so rare. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Chamanamante, Gyanavamam Prabhajate. After many births and deaths, you finally come to the conclusion that rendering devotional service is the most important thing in my life. It takes many lifetimes normally. But Krishna comes as Lord Chaitanya and gives away such an opportunity to the most unqualified. The more unqualified you are, the more right you have to ask for Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So first we want to assimilate this point. Stane stata shrutikatam tanu vanmanovi. It takes the heat off of your false pursuits. It reduces the heat of the false pursuits and your mad pursuit of them. Mad pursuit of false pursuits, false objectives. All I have to do is make an adjustment. Change this, change that. We're talking materially, not changing from material to spiritual, but changing one material situation or circumstance to another. then I'll be happy. This is called, remember, the arrival fallacy. When I arrive at that point, when I attain that goal, I can just feel how I'm going to be. It's going to be glorious. It's going to be ecstatic. It's going to be awesome. And every time, once you arrive at that point, you're disappointed. Another name for this is emotional forecasting. That probably sounds more digestible. And emotional forecasting. I can just feel it now. How I'm going to feel when I get this, when I get that. When I make this change, when I make this adjustment, I can just feel it right now, how I'm going to feel. It's called emotional forecasting. It's like weather forecasting. But emotional forecasting is always wrong. But we never learn from that. We're habituated. Even the behavioral scientists who have studied this syndrome, they admit that they themselves fall for it. They have nothing better, no superior taste to prevent them from chasing the lower taste, even though they studied the lower tastes all the time. And they know they're going to be disappointed. They know the emotional forecasting is not going to work out the way they visualize, but they can't help themselves. So whatever your situation, whatever ashram you're in, whatever occupational tendencies you have, whatever your residence, whatever your circumstances of any type, the main thing is, don't think that changing them is going to be the magic pill. The magic of your life is hearing and chanting about Krishna. So therefore we hear in the purport, one may be in one position or another according to destiny, but in any case, one must continue to hear about the activities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord, regardless of circumstances. So this is a world of circumstances. World of challenges, health challenges, financial challenges, relationship challenges. That's going to go on to varying degrees for everyone. But if you have a chance to hear and chant about Krishna, despite the circumstances, then your life is successful. Of course, yes, you want to use your intelligence to arrange your circumstances as best you can. This verse is not prohibiting that. As best you can, you sort yourself out in terms of your circumstances. But you'll recognize if you have spiritual vision, you'll recognize that there's a limit to what you can do by adjusting this and adjusting that. Do your best. But understand you're limited, you're constrained. You're not fully independent. And if you were fully independent, you could change all your circumstances according to what you like. You can't do that, but you're chained and bound. So remember, in any case, one must continue to hear about the activities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord, regardless of the circumstances. Do your best to be as comfortable as you can in this world, knowing that you actually can't be comfortable in this world. But do your best. Be as happy as you can be in a world where there's no happiness. So let's go on. A pure devotee does not pray for liberation or for cessation of the cycle of birth and death, because he does not consider that important. Say, well, wait a minute now. I'd love to have the cycle of birth and death terminated. I'd love to be finished with the whole process of samsara. What is this? that a pure devotee does not consider that important. Well, what is most important? That question you should ask. What is most important? And we read, the most important thing for a devotee is getting a chance to hear about the pastimes and glories of the Lord. That's the most important thing. So the Pracetas are putting things in perspective so you can prioritize. It's not saying don't make a move in the material world, don't make an adjustment. Just everything stays the same the way it is. Never try to tinker with your circumstances. It doesn't say that. It just points out that that tinkering, that adjusting, is not very important compared to, do you have an opportunity to hear and chant about Krishna? You got that opportunity to engage in devotional service, you've got it made. In spite of your health challenges, financial challenges, relationship challenges. So again, the verse is not telling you, don't try to solve your health challenges. Don't try to solve your relationship challenges. Don't try to solve your financial challenges. The verse is not saying that. It's just putting first things first. Putting what is central in the central position. Hearing and chanting about Krishna is so essential that a devotee, a mature devotee, is not worried. Should I go? I want to get out of the material world. I want mukti. I want liberation, freedom from material suffering. No, the main thing is, where is an opportunity to associate with those who are hearing and chanting about Krishna? And we are assured that the devotees who engage in the service of the Lord in this world will have the same opportunity in the spiritual world also. Thus, for a devotee, everything is in the spiritual world. What? Everything is in the spiritual world? So you may say, well, we don't feel like that. Everything is the spiritual world. This is not meant in some kind of new agey sense. Everything is beautiful in its own way. It's all spiritual, you know. No, this is referring to the transformative effect of hearing and chanting about Krishna, the transformative effect of devotional service. Thus, for a devotee, everything is in the spiritual world. Just give me a chance to hear and chant about Krishna, and then the Lord is personally present. So it's a question of our progressing in our realization of this. Don't just shut the door on it. Well, that's for the pure devotees. That's for the advanced devotees. What about us down here on the ground, stuck in the muck? Give us something practical. This is the height of practicality. Tatra tishtami narada yatra gayanti mad bhakta. When the pure devotees assemble to chant, hear, and talk about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the place where they assemble becomes Vaikuntha. So this is the peak potential for the Bhakti Lounge. We want devotees that are able to assemble and turn a place into Vaikuntha by their chanting, hearing, and talking about Krishna. We go on. For the devotee, there's no need to pray to the Lord for transferal to the Vaikuntha world. You say, wait a minute, are we supposed to be hoping to go back to Godhead? Are we hoping, aspiring to return to Vaikuntha? But actually, a qualified devotee understands that simply by chanting the glories of the Lord without offense, a pure devotee can create Vaikuntha or Vrindavan anywhere. This is the power of Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. Hearing and chanting about Krishna, especially in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, you're going nowhere without hearing and chanting about Krishna. You're going nowhere good. In other yugas, you stood a chance of some partial elevation, going to the heavenly planets, developing mystic powers, merging into impersonal Brahman. But in Kali Yuga, everything is very bleak. Life is short. Life's a struggle. Ignorance is all pervasive. People just live their life and die, and they think that's it. Sometimes they're religious and they hope after this life they'll go to heaven. They have no information of what is this heaven. It's nice to have that sentiment, but tell us where you're going. Tell us about the place. If I say, I'm going to Wanganui, you assume that I know where I'm going and I know what I'll find there. Or I'm going to New Plymouth. Oh, you must know someone in New Plymouth. You must have an address. You must have some plan what you're going to do when you get there. We'll all go to New Plymouth and visit Verna. Is your house big enough to hold us all?
Standing.
So you would assume if I said, we just can't wait to get to New Plymouth. Oh, you must know someone there. You have at least you're going to stay in a hotel there. You must have a booking or something. I know zero about it, but we just got to get to New Plymouth. So, at best in this world, you find religionists who talk about going home, going to heaven, going to be with the Lord. It's a nice sentiment. But your chances of actually doing that increase exponentially if you know where you're going. If you know about where you're going, you'll be more focused. You'll be more attracted. Just like when you travel on your OE overseas. I'm going to London. There's things you have in mind you want to do there. So you're attracted. But if you say, I'm going back to God, I'm going back home, what's attracting you? Your progress will be quicker, stronger, and better if you know where you're going. You know all the details. For example, how can you have love without knowledge of the form of the Supreme Personality of God? How can you have love? Love means you're attracted to form, qualities, activities. If you don't have knowledge of that in relation to the Supreme Personality of God, how can you have love? It's a nice sentiment. Without the pull of attraction, how can there be love? So if you don't know anything about the form of the Supreme Personality Godhead, how can you have love? What are you loving? A cloud? An old man on a throne with a lightning bolt in his hand? What are you loving? Love means form, qualities, activities. Those items attract you. So how can there be love of God without knowledge of the form, the qualities, and the activities? So we're learning that for the devotee, there's no need to praise the Lord. Get me out of here. Get me to the spiritual world. Because if you can associate with devotees who are developing their spiritual purity to the extent that gradually they're creating Vaikuntha and Vrindavan just by their chanting the glories of Krishna. So never mind what form of life you're going to take. The Pracetas are saying, bhave, bhave, whatever form, whatever planet, is not important. Just give us the opportunity to hear about Krishna. The devotee is not particularly eager to stop this process. What? I thought the whole point is stop changing bodies. Go to the spiritual world. Yes, that's the point in general, but as one develops pure bhakti, one simply is hankering, yearning, praying for an opportunity to please Krishna. And that kind of desire is the spiritual world. So you're starting to find out that the spiritual world is not the kind of destination in the way that we normally think a destination is. Point A to point B. You can be, in bhakti, you can be at point A, and point A transforms into point B. Just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur demonstrating the pinnacle of bhakti transformation. He writes in one song, Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu. He's performing arti in his home. And he sees his whole house turn into Vaikuntha. That's the peak potential. So we read that the devotee is not particularly eager to stop this process of transmigration. And that's demonstrated, this point is demonstrated by Lord Chaitanya, who says, Mama janmani janmani isvare bhavatad bhaktiya hoitiki toy. Birth after birth I don't mind, as long as what? You don't know. As long as I have devotional service, I don't mind birth after birth. So we have to ask ourselves, what is my motivation? What am I trying to do? What am I here for? Many will say, I'm here because I'm tired of suffering. Chasing material pleasure is just an illusion. I want something better. That's smart. But even smarter is to long for hearing and chanting about Krishna in association of progressive devotees, serving Krishna in their association. So gradually, your motivation will change. You may have come to bhakti because you're inquisitive. You may be seeking a better material situation. You may be seeking knowledge of Brahman, the all-pervading spiritual manifestation. Or you may just be escaping distress. You've been chewed up and burnt out. But all those motivations are laudable because you're approaching Krishna, but they're not the best way to approach Krishna. So as we mature as devotees, we start developing a taste for pure bhakti. Let me have a chance to serve Krishna with pure motivation. That means serving Krishna for Krishna's pleasure. So we also find out there's no need for a devotee to ask to be freed from the modes of material nature. devotional service itself is in the transcendental position. Therefore, there's no question of asking for the special facility of being free from the modes of material nature. If you've got devotional service and you know what you've got, if you understand the value of the treasure that's in your hand, then you understand. You have an opportunity to be beyond the modes of material nature. So the conclusion is that a pure devotee is not anxious to stop the repetition of birth and death, but is always eager to associate with other devotees who are engaged in chanting and hearing about the glories of the Lord. So this verse and purport require a lot of thought, because they're turning upside down our usual thinking. This verse and purport they are counterintuitive. Because we're like, if anything, where all systems go. I want to go back to Godhead. I want to stop the cycle of repeated birth and death. That's intelligent. But there's a higher level. And the Pracetas are teaching you what is pure bhakti. Once you understand this principle of pure bhakti, you can see it anywhere. Just like in the Bible, it is said there. Jesus is in the garden right before the crucifixion. He's asked his disciples to give him a chance to pray in solitude. So he goes to a solitary place of the same garden and is praying. And according to the Bible, he says, "Father, if possible, let me not have to go through this." And then he immediately then changes. No. Not my will, but thy will be done. That is pure bhakti. So if you understand the principle of pure devotional service, then you're a true universalist. But because there's just a hint of love of the Supreme Personality of God, there's just a hint in so many religions of the world, the full understanding is very rare. But in the Bhakti text, you get the full comprehensive understanding of what is pure devotional service. How to serve Krishna for Krishna's pleasure. So please meditate on this verse and purport. Think about it. It can transform your whole modus operandi, your whole expectations, dreams, desires. And you can now understand why we stress hearing and chanting about Krishna in the association of devotees. In other words, as I often say humorously, devotees are good for something more than just annoying you. Once you get this central point understood, it makes associating with devotees so much easier. Okay, now I know why you're around. So I hope you'll find this verse by the Pracetas very significant enough that you'll make it as a central meditation of your life. Because then you can understand the Panchatattva. You can understand Lord Chaitanya. You can start to understand Krishna. And gradually you'll start to see the highest levels of the spiritual world, where devotees get more pleasure in introducing other devotees to Krishna than they get by being with Krishna themselves. You get a glimpse of that when you're singing the Gurvashtak prayers. Nikunjayuno Ratikeli Siddhaya Yayali Bia Yuktiya Apekshaniya. Spiritual Master is always engaged in making arrangements for Radha and Krishna meeting in the groves of Vrindavan. So that is the mood of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission. Connecting others to Krishna is more pleasurable than you meeting Krishna yourself. Sounds really counterintuitive, doesn't it? You think, oh, give me the opportunity to be with Krishna, to see Krishna. But especially in our sampradaya, our line, our spiritual line, those who are assisting in the meeting of Radha and Krishna, the Manjaris, they taste more pleasure than Radha does in meeting with Krishna. And Srimati Radharani tastes more pleasure in arranging for her girlfriends to be with Krishna than she does by being with Krishna herself. It sounds so counterintuitive, doesn't it? It's the tonic, it's the cure for our selfishness. What's in it for me? I want for me. But you mean I'll be happier by arranging for others to be with Krishna than me? But that is the spirit of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So by serving Lord Chaitanya, we serve him in dasya, servitude. You can understand the most intimate activities of the spiritual world, in which more pleasure is derived by arranging that Krishna's devotees be with him, especially his topmost devotee, than you derive from your own meeting with Krishna. And the same is for Srimati Radharani. She derives more pleasure by arranging that her associates meet with Krishna than she does by herself meeting Krishna. So you can see the continuum from our lowly situation in the material world, trying to connect people to Krishna, to the topmost, most confidential level of the spiritual world. All right, any questions?